air, the heat, the sea, the fire, the vibe, the bomb, the songs, the arms. For God, this a generation. For God, we are a generation. For God, you can see it in my eyes. Alright y'all, welcome to HFOG TV. My name is Juke from JUKWorld.com, as well as the creator of the Hip Hop Gospels at HipHopHolyBible.com. That's the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrapped. As well as HolyFireOfGod.com, HFOG TV. I got my man Tyler in the house.
What's going on,
What's up, Tyler?
What's up? How you doing?
Good, good. So, normally what we do for the program is we just start out with a brief testimony of how you came to know the Lord.
All right. My testimony is basically a testimony of death. You know, I was doing drugs, alcohol, heroin, blues, crack, all kinds of things that I know wasn't the life that God wanted me to live. You know, it took me a lot to finally hit my rock bottom and to finally see that. You know, I had to go to prison, I had to go to jail, and, you know, all these things, and it was just a horrible experience, you know, just living that way, not being able to be free, and, you know, being able to see my family and my friends and talk to them and hug them and hold them, you know, so it was about 2 years ago when I finally hit my rock bottom. You know, I was driving in my car, and it was on Cape Coral Parkway. I was on about 20 blues, which is Roxycontin. You know, I was on like 15 Xanax bars. I was on over a fifth of vodka, and I've been up all night. And I was driving down the street, and I fell asleep at the wheel. And I went off the side of the road. I wrecked my car. I rolled it about 3 times. I bit my tongue completely off. I put my head through my windshield. And I was 1.5 inches away from hitting the gas line and blowing me up in the car. So, I mean, praise God that, you know, it just shows me that there is a reason and a purpose for my life, because it really is life or death when it comes to things like that, and testimonies, mine in particular, you know, because he could have taken me at that point in time, even before the car crash with all the drugs that were in my system. He could have taken me at any time, but he didn't, and that reminds me every single day that I do have a purpose for my life, you know, that I'm here for a reason, and that reason is to, you know, spread the love, you know, share his gospel, share my testimony, and glorify him, and let people know that you can overcome things through Christ, that when you are weak, he is strong, and that he'll never leave your side, even when you forsake him, even when you don't walk near him or walk even close to him, that he's there in the midst of everything, you know. So that's just a little bit of my testimony, and plus, like, my family, you know, being raised up in a very dysfunctional home, you know, mental abuse, physical abuse, and, you know, just living with that, you know, having people say that you're stupid your whole life, and, you know, you're never going to amount to nothing, and, you know, you're a bum, you're never going to work, you don't do those things. And praise God today that I have a job, you know. I can say that I can hold a job, that I can go to work, you know, that I have family and friends who truly care about me as a person, you know, and it's all because of God. Ever since I turned my life around to God, nothing but great things have happened. Yeah, I have certain situations and circumstances in my life that I have to go through now still, but that's only because he knows that I can handle it, that I can overcome those things, because he is with me and I am with him, because I have this relationship with him that means more than anything in this world. So
okay, so you said about 2 years ago is when that car crash happened?
Yeah, about 2.5 years ago.
How old were you, 20?
I just turned 21.
Just turned 21. And so, you know, what take us through what happened after that in reference to you coming to Christ, you coming to the house, the First Assembly of God Church, you know. Take us through a timetable of, okay,
this happened at the crash, and then I was recovering for this amount of time, and then after that, take us through that.
All right. Well, I remember this day pretty well, even though I was all messed up. I remember it pretty well because it was a very impact moment on my life. I was at my brother's and my dad's. My mom and my dad split up, and I was living with my mom, and my brother and my dad were living in a hotel room. And I was over there, and we were all doing, blues, Roxycons, and I was real messed up, and I decided to go to my ex-bosses.
You were doing it with your mom?
My brother and my dad.
You were doing it with your brother and your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I decided that my boss, who I was working for, he had his own company, which was air conditioning. And I decided that, I'm going to go there because he wasn't paying me my money that he owed me. I needed to go get my paycheck. He was, dodging me, so I went over there. Ended up, getting my money. And I ended up, taking that money and going out and buying more blues and alcohol and drugs. And I went to a friend's house, and I was just doing all these things, just partying it up, living the life, the worldly life. And after that, I decided to go home. So I was on my way back to my dad's house. It was 6 in the morning. I was on my way back to my dad's house, and I didn't realize that I just had fallen asleep at the wheel. I was so intoxicated on so many different kinds of things. I'm surprised my heart didn't stop or my liver didn't shut off, something like that. But I just fell asleep at the wheel, and as I was asleep, I vaguely remember just bumping up and down. But I was incoherent, but I couldn't even do anything about it because I was so messed up. And I just remember that, and then all of a sudden, the car starts flipping, and after that, I wake up in the back seat of my car, and I had Xanax bars on me. So my first instinct, my first reaction was, the cops are gonna come. I have all these Xanax bars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get charged with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I start eating them all. I start eating every single one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And as I'm eating these, I just feel myself getting more and more incoherent and delirious and dysfunctional as a human. I just feel it. Every pill I'm popping, I'm just where am I? And I'm just losing myself more and more. Deeper and deeper. And so the cops come, and I'm outside the car at this point. I crawled out, and I'm just smoking a cigarette, just waiting for him to come, just halfway asleep. Blood running down my mouth, my tongue is off, and I'm smoking a cigarette. That's how, I didn't even realize that I had bit my tongue off. I didn't realize it. I was so incoherent. There's blood everywhere, puddles of blood, but I didn't realize that my tongue has been bitten off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so the cop comes, and they just automatically rush me to the hospital, sew my tongue back on, this and this, and then they arrest me for DUI, but they lowered it to reckless driving, and on top of that, I was on probation for burglary. I was on probation for burglary at that same time as I'm doing all this, so I violated probation as well.
Wow.
Which, if I wouldn't have done that, I would have got off probation and I wouldn't be a convicted felon now. So now I'm a convicted felon because I chose to drink and drive and do pills and all that and violated my probation. So I'm at the hospital, and they're just, just how are you alive right now, all these things, and it's just insane, So I do that, and then they arrest me, so I'm in jail with a bitten off tongue in the infirmary.
Did they sew it on yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they sewed it on. And so it's just insane, just to know where my life was. But yeah, so I'm in jail, and I'm going to court, all these things, my tongue's slowly healing, everything's seeming okay. I don't think I'm gonna do that much time. I mean, I didn't really do anything that bad, right? So that was my insane way of thinking. And so I'm going to court, and the whole time my public defender's yeah, we're gonna try to get you a good deal, we're gonna try to help you out, this and this. Didn't happen that way. Not one bit. I ended up getting, that whole time I sat in jail, waiting to, go into court, waiting to get sentenced, it didn't count. That time didn't count. They gave me a fresh year, which means I get a new year, and that time I sat in jail, which was 8 months, didn't count.
Whoa.
So I ended up doing 2 years, but on top of that, I only did 16 months. So yeah, so basically I just ended up doing a total of like 60 months. And that was, sitting in jail, I got to think a lot. I didn't remember anything. Like the first week and a half I was in jail, I didn't remember anything. And after that week and a half, I was walking around with a smile on my face. Because I was just like delirious. I didn't know where I was at. I was basically just walking around like, I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
And the CO that was there for the first week, because they do shift change, like every other week, they shift change. And after that week and a half, I got that same officer back. And he called me up to the front desk, we're in a pod, and I was in a dorm at first, and he called me up to his little office. He's like, Frenchko, come here. I was like, okay, what's going on? And he's like, what were you on? When you first came in here, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you came in here so happy. You came in here like nothing was wrong. And now I'm looking at you and I'm watching you and you seem a little like you're coming to realization of where you're really at.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, yeah, I was on a lot of Xanax bars and blues and vodka, all, I was on everything, And he's like, and he just looked at me like almost sad, He looked at me like I was not on like a piece of crap or anything. He just looked at me as like he felt bad for me, I don't want people looking at me like that.
Yeah.
It feels bad. It feels like I'm ashamed. I don't want somebody looking at me in that way. Like, man, I feel sorry for this kid. Like, what is he doing with his life? I want people to look at me and be like, man, look at that kid. He's doing good. Loves the Lord. He's doing esteemable things. He's going to church. He works. He's fit. He's got his life together. He's doing good. He's doing good things, and that's what I feel like I am today. That's what I feel like people look at me like today. Like I'm doing a lot better than what I used to be. So it's just a bad feeling when people look at you and you can see it in their eyes that they're truly worried for you and sad for you because you're ruining your life. You're truly killing yourself, and you don't even care. And if you don't care about yourself, how can you care about anybody else? Which I didn't. I didn't care about anybody else.
So you said you did 16 months in jail.
Yeah.
During this time, did you have any spiritual experience, or were you like just kind of, well, I need to get my life together or something, or did anybody present the gospel to you at this time? Take us through what happened through that or after that, maybe.
Okay. Well, when I was in jail, I didn't really. I had a spiritual moment. I didn't go to church or anything for a long time in there, and eventually they had this thing called the God Pod, and I was in the tents as a trustee, and I went one time, and I felt this feeling that I've never felt before. Like, I didn't know that it was the Holy Spirit. I didn't know that it was anything like that. I just felt this overwhelming presence, this feeling that was inside of me, like this tingling. And inside the jail, we had a bunch of speakers come to us. And as we were doing that, they lined up in front of the pod, and they asked, whoever wants to come up and have prayer, come up and have prayer, and then you'll do the trust fall, and you fall and somebody catches you. Well, I did that, and I walked over there, and this lady started praying for me, and I started shaking, like uncontrollably. I started like I couldn't control it. I just started shaking, and before she was even done with her prayer, I had fallen back. But after that, I don't know if it scared me. I didn't know if it, I don't know what, but I didn't go back. I didn't go back. I just went back to jail, to my pod, and continued doing my sentence. And the whole time, you know, it was really intense, like just the living style, and you know, not being able to do what you want, eat what you want, you know, just have to always guard your stuff, watch your back and things like that. And it's just a bad environment. So I got into a fight with this kid in the kitchen where I used to work. We used to work, they'd wake us up at 2 in the morning and work all the way till 2 in the afternoon. Every single day. Not one day off. And you'd have to work sick no matter what. You couldn't have a day off. And so I was working, and I got this fight with this kid, and I got roped off. That means I got my trustee. I am not a trustee no more. So now I got a DR, which means I have to go to a hole, which is 24-hour lockdown in like a 2-man cell, but I was in there by myself. And in there, you know, I had this book called Why Storms Are Good for Your Life. And in that book, I was reading Jonah. You know, how he ran away from God. God told him to go here, and he went somewhere else, and then he ended up being in the belly of the beast and for 3 days and nights. And I just felt like that's what I was doing. I was just running away from God's will. You know, I was running away from my family, my friends, the people who cared for me. I felt like I was a piece of crap. I felt unworthy. You know, it really convicted me. You know, it convicted me every time I read that book, and I still have that book. You know, and it's just, I'm glad that, and I got that book from that same day that when I was shaking uncontrollably, I took that book and they gave it to me. And I kept it. I read it, but I didn't go back to church. So, in the meantime, I'm just like, man, I gotta get my life together. You know, when I get out of jail, I'm not gonna do drugs no more. You know, I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna make, you know, people proud of me. I'm gonna be proud of myself. And little less, I got back out of jail. My parents saw me. I was so happy. You know, I was crying. I hugged my mom and my dad.
And do you know how long ago this was when you got out of jail? About?
It was about almost a year and a half, or something, like a year ago.
So a little over a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little over a year. And
so you got out, you see your parents.
I see my parents, and I was just so happy to see them. And I don't know what it was. The first thing that came to my mind was, I want to get a blue. You know, I was with my brother, and we were driving home, and I was smoking a cigarette, which I wasn't gonna smoke when I got out either. I was like, I'm gonna smoke cigarettes. I quit for this long. You know, I might as well quit. First thing, I get a cigarette, and then after that, I get home. I'm in my own house. You know, I got my own home and everything with my parents. I'm like, man, it's so good to be home. I get to walk in the fridge and do whatever I want. But that was still in the back of my mind, even though it was such a great moment. That evil was still in the back of my mind. Like, man, how am I gonna get high? So I started getting high again, doing all these things. You know, going out and raving, going to the rabbit hole, taking Molly, and just out of my mind again. Right back into it. And my parents were like, listen, we're kicking you out. I was like, what? I was like, that's not fair. That's not right. What? I'm your son. Don't you love me? And they're like, yeah, we do. That's why we're kicking you out. They kicked me out, and my sister took me in. Praise God for that. You know.
Who's your sister?
Kelly Frenchko.
Alright.
Kelly Barefoot Frenchko. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If you don't know her, she's an amazing girl. So just saying. But so yeah, she took me in, praise God, you know, and just let me live with her. She got me on my feet, you know. She presented me to the gospel again, like, you know, thoroughly. You know, she really brought it to me. She introduced me to good guys and girls, you know, Christian people.
How long ago was this?
This was around April.
So about a year. So we're in May. We're in May now.
Yeah, and so this was like literally about 2 months after I got out of jail.
Okay.
And I was partying it up for that whole 2 months, and then my mom was like, "You're not doing the things that you said you were gonna do when you got out of jail, so we're kicking you out." So it was like 2 months after that, and then Kelly moved me in, and then did all that, you know, introduced me to all these people, and I thought they were crazy. Thought they were all crazy. I was like, who are these people, you know? Nobody can be this happy all the time.
Huh.
You know? So that was my way of, you know, thinking.
Mm.
But it was amazing, you know, truly convicting. You know, when every time I heard the word, I just felt like they were talking directly to me, like my life, and every time it's like they were talking directly to me, like I was the only one in the room.
Mm.
So it's like I knew I had to be there. I knew that was a reason to why I had to be there. You know, and shortly after that, I met a really good friend of mine, you know. His name is Angelo Turco.
Hey!
Hey, Angelo, shout out Angelo Turco. And he introduced me to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which, you know, is amazing. It truly helps me. It truly makes me, you know, every time I leave a meeting, I know that I'm supposed to be there. I'm happy. You know, it gets my feelings out. I get to share what I'm struggling with. I get to share my testimony. You know, I get to share my fears of rejection and insecurity and abandonment and all of these things. And, you know, those people truly, you know, those people, I can relate to them and they can relate to me. See, not everybody can relate to an addict. Not everybody can, because some people don't struggle with that. I do. And, you know, I know that God put Angelo in my life for a reason, so that I can go to AA. I know that God put people like Juke and my sister and Brian Sutton and all these people to help me to grow spiritually. I know that God put all these people, everything for a reason, you know, everything to grow in according to His plan, to grow stronger in faith and to be more bold and to get out of my comfort zone, you know. And that was a big thing for me, getting out of my comfort zone. And, you know, I have friends who push me. I have friends who encourage me to get out of my comfort zone and to share these things. Like right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm out of my comfort zone. It might not seem like that because not now, right now, but in the beginning I was. Because I just have a fear of rejection. I have a fear that, oh, somebody's not going to like that. Somebody's not going to like what I have to say. Somebody's going to make fun of me. You know? And I have that fear. And it's something that I have to overcome all the time. And praise God that He gives me the strength to do that. That I know that it's not for me, it's for Him, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm sharing this testimony. That's why I'm sharing my secrets and my feelings with all of you. You know, with all of you, because it's not for me. It's for God. It's for His glory. It's for His plan.
When did you first get into drugs? Like, when were you introduced to that? Like, how old were you when you first started doing drugs, you know? And
Right. Okay.
a little bit of that.
So I started when I was in 6th grade. You know, I started when I was a little kid, not even really knowing what I'm doing. But I had those influences in my life that knew. But they gave it to me anyways.
And this continued on through high school?
This continued on through middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Only smoking weed and drinking. I didn't think it was a problem. Then high school came along, and started smoking weed. You know, pop X here and there, pop some X pills. You know, still drinking. Heavily though, more drinking, more of everything. You know, it increased a lot. And then started doing coke.
In high school?
Yeah, started doing like coke in like 10th grade. 9th grade, I was still a pothead and drinker, that's it. 10th grade came around, started doing like coke, crack. You know, it progressed. It went from like coke and then to, I was shooting blues since I was in 10th grade because I had a hernia surgery. And I had surgery on it. And the pills they gave me weren't working. So my dad had a prescription of Roxycontin, and he gave me a quarter of it, and he said, here, just take this. I didn't know what it was. He was like, just take this, it'll get the pain away. He was looking out, to him it was looking out for my best interest. He didn't want me to be in pain. He didn't want to see his kid in pain. So that turned out to be a real addiction right there. I wanted more of that. I needed more of that, you know. Even after my surgery was gone, that I was hooked. I needed it. And that was my first. Then it was like crack, and then it just turned into like crack, heroin. I did meth. I did basically freebasing, was just like smoking coke in a bowl, just smoking dirties, just everything you can imagine, you know. And sometimes, and it was crazy because sometimes I would be doing coke, which is an upper. It gets your heart racing. It gets your heart going. And then I would do blues, and I would mix them together. And blues is a downer, which slows your heart rate down. So I'm doing the insanity. I'm doing coke and blues mixed together at the same time. Can you even imagine what that's doing to my heart? Like what kind of games that's playing? Like up, down, like fast and slow. I'm surprised I didn't get a heart attack, you know?
And I happen to know that you were an athlete during this time, is that right?
Yes.
So you were in high school, and in high school you ran. Did you do any other sports, or that was pretty much what you did, the track?
I basically did track and field and cross country. I played other sports outside of school, like Cyclones for soccer. I played football, like sandlot football, but I was pretty good. But I did mainly cross country and track and field.
So you're doing all these drugs, and you're playing these sports, and you're doing really well for track and field, right? Like state.
Yeah, like state championships, and you know, I was the fastest kid. I went to AAU, which is Junior Olympics, and I was the fastest kid in the state for like 4 years in a row, and I was second in the nation. Which is like the whole world. The only kid who beat me was from like Ethiopia or something like that. Something crazy where he's running mountains every day. But yeah, and I blew it. I still run. You know, my fastest mile was like low fours. You know, real low fours. So like 4:10, 4:15. And yeah, so I mean, I had it. I had scholarships. I was in high school, and they were looking for me. You know, I had schools telling me that I had full rides and this and that, and I hung out with the wrong kids. I hung out with the wrong people. You know, bad company corrupts good character, and I didn't realize that. And my parents told me that, and I didn't believe them. I was like, "Oh, these are my friends. They're my friends. They just want to have fun with me." But really, they were just dragging me down with them. They were just basically, just bringing me down with them, you know. Misery loves company, you know. And it's true. They were miserable, and they wanted to bring people down with them. And then the saddest part is, I became that. I became miserable, and I became bad company. And I was corrupting good character of other people. And I was stuck in my misery, bringing my family and other people in my life down with me.
All right, so you said you started going back to church with Kelly, and how long from when you started going back to church to when you really feel like you gave your life fully to the Lord?
I was going to church with my sister, and I remember there was this one this thing that was going on where it was like worship night, and this song came on, you know, Rooftops, and I just found myself in a corner crying, like crying out to God, like, God, I need this, I want this, and I just felt that unshakable feeling again. I was shaking again, but this time I didn't run from it, you know. I stayed in it. I didn't want to leave. No matter what that feeling was, if I was scared of it or, you know, anything, I wanted to stay in it. And I feel like 2 months after I moved into my sister's house, like a month after I moved into my sister's house, I accepted my life, you know. And the craziest thing is, it's just confirmation. When I was in that corner, crying and just, you know, crying out to God, after everything, this person came up to me and was like, "Who are you?" I was like, "I'm Tyler." She's like, I just want to say that I saw you with your hands up, and then I saw you in that corner crying, and there was a light over you the entire time. Like there was this light on you, like you were shining. And I just felt goosebumps all over my body when she said that. I just felt like light as a feather. I just felt like I was floating almost. And, you know, we sat there and prayed and everything. And then I told her that, she's like, what's your last name? I was like, Frenchko. She's like, you're Kelly's brother? I was like, yeah. She was like, you know, she was just like amazed, like, because she didn't know who I was, but she knew my sister. And it was just amazing, like the confirmation that right then I gave my life to Christ, and he was just shining on me, that he was just lifting me up. He was holding me, he was comforting me, because he knew that I was scared. He knew that I was scared of that feeling, because it was truth, because it was real, because the whole time I've been living my life a lie. My whole life has been a lie. And at that very moment, he knew that I surrendered, and he just wrapped me up in his arms, and he held on to me, you know? And that's just confirmation, like from that girl that I didn't even know. That was confirmation from her, and it was amazing. Like it was just an amazing experience. And I want other people to feel that.
Yeah.
I want them to feel that.
Do you think there's other people watching right now that are in the same boat that you are maybe in? And if so, what would you tell them?
It breaks my heart, but yes, I know for a fact there's a lot of people out there, if not worse than my situation, if not worse. And the only thing that I can say is change your people, places, and things. Change your friends. Change the places you go, and change the things you do. I changed my place, which was my home, which changed the people in my life, which changed the things I did. See, you hang out with somebody, they rub off on you.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's like that. Everybody's like that. You hang out with somebody enough, they rub off on you. Their goodness rubs off on you. Their light shines bright on you. You know, they talk about God, they do these things, they do esteemable things. You want to do esteemable things. But if you hang out with somebody who is doing drugs and robbing people, and that's who you're hanging out with, that's who you become. You become that. Even though your heart, that's not your heart, but that's who you become. You know? And I just, you know, just change your people, places, and things, you know? You'll notice that your life will start to come around. You notice that you hang out with good people, you'll do good things. You'll become a good person. And then people will want to hang out with you. You know?
Do you run into people that you used to party with now, today?
Yeah.
First of all, do you feel like the same person when you talk to these people, or do you feel like a different person? That's my first question. Second of all, do you feel like you can relate to these people, or do you feel now that you're kind of unrelatable, or, you know, explain that to me. How does that go down?
Yes, I run into these people all the time. I run into my old friends, you know. I actually, his name's Taylor Hahn, and he goes to the bowling alley on Thursdays, and he's in the bar, you know, he's doing his thing, he's having fun, he's having a good time, and so am I. And he notices that I'm with a church group, and he works with my friend Jasadi. He works with her, and he's like, man, is that was Tyler, right? That you hang out with? Tyler's involved in that church group, and she's like, yeah, and he's just like, wow, he's changed a lot. He has changed a lot. And I don't feel like the same person. I don't. I feel new. I feel brand new. I feel redeemed. I feel like, you know, I feel good. And I run into these people, and they notice that I'm different. They notice that I'm not drinking. They notice that I'm not doing those things. That I'm just having a good time. And that was the first question. The second one, do I feel like I can't talk to them? Not at all. I feel like, if anything, I can relate to them more than anyone. And the fact is, what's great about it, that God uses that now the way I am, I can encourage them, and I can show them how I used to be, because they knew who I was. They knew that I was bad, that I was fighting all the time, I was drinking, that I was a vindictive person, I was evil, you know. I didn't care about nobody, I only cared about myself, you know. And that was because of the drugs. But they see me now and they're like, wow, what happened? Like, dang, dude. And I talk to them and I relate to them and I tell them what I did and I tell them what I had to go through. And then I tell them I accepted my life to Jesus Christ and I live a completely different life now, you know, a life that is pure, a life that is true, a life that is real, a life that I know I will have for the rest of my life and then I will have for eternity, because I'm not living for this life no more. I'm just getting the Holy Spirit right now. You know? And I'm not living life for this world. I'm not living it for this. Yeah. I'm living it for the next. Yeah. You know, I'm not building up treasures for this world, but for the next. I want to live for eternity with God. You know, I want to sit on mountaintops. I want to shout out His name from a mountaintop. You know, and these people see that, and they see the change in my life, and it truly makes me that much happier that I can use that and tell somebody, whether they want to accept it or not, or whether they want to, you know, take it in. But I know that the more and more I run into these people, at least one of them, you know, will be like, wow, I want what he has. I want that. That's something I want. How do I get that? And then they'll call me or talk to me, or they'll meet up with me again and be like, yo, man, I want what you have. You know, what do I have to do? What can I do? And then, you know, come to the church. And I invite them to church. I invite all those people to church. I invite them to the house. Word, Pastor Alex, big shout out. But I invite them to the house. You know, they don't come sometimes. Sometimes they do. But I planted the seed, you know. Yeah. And plus, it's good encouragement. Like, when I see somebody, when I was like that, and I had this one guy come in and speak to when I was in jail, and he was talking about all these things that he did, and I was like, look at this guy. This guy has it all together. Well, I can do that, you know. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, so it's like it's faith. Like, you know, like, if somebody else can do it, I can do it. If he can turn his life around, I can do it. But you have to want to do it. You have to want to put in the work. You have to want to, and it's hard. Being a Christian ain't easy. You know, you go through trials and tribulations. You go through hardship. You go through a lot of things. But the fact that we know, knowing is power. The fact that we know we have Jesus, it's that much easier to go through those things. And, you know, being transformed by the renewing of your mind, you look at things in a different way. Like, instead, when something bad happens, and you're like, oh, this is messed up, I can't, you know, why are you doing this to me? You change it and you say, well, God must really trust me with this. He knows I can handle it. So, with those people, you know, they see that. You know, even just talking to me, I know that they can see all of that.
You know, what if someone's watching right now, maybe they're like, well, what's wrong with this? You know, I'm having fun, I'm going out, I'm partying, I'm getting high, I'm going home, taking girls home with me, you know, like, it's fun, man. I'm having fun right now. Like, why should I stop? You know, what's the big deal?
Right. Well, it definitely depends on the relationship with somebody. You know, if I was close to somebody, like, and I knew them intimately, I would tell them that they're wrong. You know, that they're living a lie, that they're living of this world, and that those aren't esteemable things. You know, that yeah, it makes you happy for that short time. You know, when you're with that girl, it makes you happy. But how do you feel afterwards? You feel low. You feel empty. You know, you're happy when you're smoking weed. But what happens when you run out of weed? You know, what happens when you're doing an 8-ball of coke? You know, you run out of that coke. You feel empty. You want it. You run to that more, and you want to get more, and you just it's a vicious cycle. You know, you're not truly happy with life. You're happy with drugs and alcohol for that little short period of time. And basically and this is something I would tell somebody if I knew them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell them that you're not happy with life, you're scared. And that's why you're running to drugs and alcohol. That's why you're running to drugs. That's why you're running to females, because you don't have a relationship with God. So you're running to a relationship with a girl because you don't want to feel lonely. But in reality, you're never lonely because you have Jesus. You're running to alcohol and drugs because you're scared, because you don't know how to cope with the situations in your life, and you just want to hide them and put them away and not have to look at them, because the more you look at them and the more you have to deal with them, the more you feel scared and the more you feel hurt, and you don't want to deal with those emotions because they scare you. And that's what I would tell somebody, like, if I knew them, like, but if I didn't know you, I would just be like, I love you exactly where you're at, bro. You have fun doing drugs. Yeah, that's, I don't agree with you one bit. I don't agree with you, but you do you. God will put those circumstances and situations into your life, And yeah, I'll speak somewhat truth into their life. I'll tell them that, I don't agree with what they're doing, and that what they're doing is wrong, and they're hurting their family and their friends, and they're hurting themselves. But it's attraction rather than promotion, and I want them to be somewhat attracted. I don't want them to I don't want to like piss them off, and then this way they'll never want to talk to me again. Or that guy's nothing but a jerk. Why am I even listening to him? So I want to be like kind to them, but tell them some truth, some hardcore truth in their life. So it varies on what the relationship was with a person.
Yeah.
To be able to share this with everybody, it does take a lot for me to do this, but I am grateful for everybody in my life. I'm a happy individual now, and I owe that all to Jesus Christ.
Amen.
I owe that all to Jesus Christ. And, he's just working in our lives and working in my life, and I thank him.
Let me ask you a question I asked Kelly. If you were to go to 21-year-old Tyler right now,
Alright.
and you were, you just turned 21, and you're in the midst of all of that, which is drugs, alcohol, you're still doing that. And what do you think it would take for that Tyler to, change his life? Would it take all of the circumstances that he went through in order for him to come and see the light that you now see? Or is there something that you could tell him you think that might speed up the process where he wouldn't have to go through all of that?
That's tough. A part of me wants to say that you have to hit your rock bottom. Your rock bottom is your rock bottom, and that I have to do that. But a part of me would agree with, I could possibly be like, listen, dude, I know what's going on. This is, you don't do that. Don't get in that car right now. But it's this thing. My 21-year-old Tyler is a stubborn, self-centered jerk who would not listen to anybody. Stubborn-headed. And I know my 21-year-old self, I would not listen to anybody, and I didn't listen to anybody. That's why I ended up where I was. So yeah, it might have impacted a little bit, but I would have drowned that truth. Say if my 23-year-old self came to my 20, and I told myself, my 21-year-old self, that I would be like, okay, but I would drown that truth with more drugs and alcohol, so I didn't have to deal with it. See what I'm saying? Like, when people spoke truth into my life and I didn't want to hear it, and I knew it was true, I would drown myself with more drugs, more alcohol, so I didn't have to feel that truth, which is pain, because the truth hurts. Because it was everything I stood against. So I think that I had to hit rock bottom, even if I even if I did go back and say that, I think that I would have had to have hit rock bottom in order for my life in order for me to be completely desperate and willing to be teachable by somebody else and to submit to God's will for my life and not my own.
Do you want to know what Kelly said?
Huh.
Kelly said that if she took a picture of herself right now, her smiling self, or a video of herself right now, and brought it back to her before.
You didn't say you could take pictures.
No, I know. I'm just telling you what she said. I didn't elaborate on the rules for her either. She just came up with this.
Okay.
So she said, a picture of me now, and bring that back to myself at that time and say, look, you know, this is me. This is me. I'm happy. You know,
right.
I'm joyous, and I'm not doing all these. I'm not doing these drugs. I'm not doing these other things, and I'm free. And look, you know, I'm dancing. And,
Yeah.
I mean, this is me, and that was her true self. Was that happy dancing person?
Right.
And so she's basically showing her old self that, you know, you don't need to do those things. Like, you can just have Jesus and be free and be happy and be joyous. Would you agree that maybe for your own life, or
for my own life? I think that's a pretty I think that's, you know, I would, again, I'm completely different than my sister.
Yeah.
But if I did show myself that, I'm sure that my 21-year-old self would be like, that could be me. You know, I want that. That. And my whole life I have wanted to be sober. I didn't want to be a drug addict. But that, for me, is a great idea. But no matter what, in my heart, I believe that I had to go through those circumstances. You know, I had to go through those situations because, in my eyes, that picture of me now, if I took a picture of myself smiling like, yeah, you know, dancing the goofball that I am, I wouldn't have got there to who I am now without that, without those trials and tribulations, without God refining me and plucking away every thorn, you know, plucking away all those thorns to where I'm just a branch, you know, a vine of Him, you know. So I had to go through that refining process in order to become the man that I am now, the man of God that I am now.
That's interesting. So that would mean that some people just have to go through the trials in order to strip away stuff that God can speak to them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Tyler Frenchko, for coming on HFOG TV Testimony Tuesday.
Yeah.
You can find us at JukeWorld, JUKWorld.com. Also hiphopholybible.com, and of course holyfireofgod.com, HFOG TV, and we'll see y'all next week on another episode of Testimony Tuesday. God bless.
The heat, the sea, the fire, the vibe, the bomb, the songs, the arms for God. This a generation for God. We are a generation for God. You can see it in my eyes. The trials, the passion is real. When I'm fasting, I'm smashing you cats with the seal. This a generation for God. We are a generation.
Check, yo, I rap acid, spoon feed your raps that are classics, crashes.